Let's talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria yesterday afternoon rattling the financial markets with the announcements around the foreign exchange markets, in particular the FX Bureau or the BDCs. The question is, are BDCs indispensable in Nigeria's financial markets architecture and structure, bringing fiscal policy considerations into the discourse with a bit of wide-angle view is Taiwo Oyedele, fiscal policy partner and Africa tax leader at PwC Nigeria. Good evening, sir. It's good to have you here on the show.
Good evening, Boston.
Taiwo, thank you so much. We appreciate it. It's been a very interesting time. Give us a bit of background into the evolution of bureau de change in Nigeria's financial system into what we have today.
Yeah, I think bureau de change, originated from France. Even from the name, you'll be able to make a guess. But then spread across the world, including developing countries and Nigeria. And I do think that for a long time, the government was very reluctant in bringing BDCs within the confines of the official market for foreign exchange until maybe around 2006. And I think the main purpose was to try and bridge the gap between the official market and the parallel market. Because to a very large extent, you would understand why someone who needs only $100 may not be willing to go to the bank and go through very rigorous and tedious processes to get that little amount of $100 that they needed. So therefore, you always want to have, an intervention between the official market and the parallel market. So it's also not the first time that the CBN is banning supply of dollars or foreign currency to BDCs. So this happened also in 2016. And at the time, I think that even the rates further depreciated, and many people attributed it to the ban, like we've seen from yesterday. But I also think that a lot of the movement we've seen in terms of the rates in the parallel market is down to announcement effect and also speculative to a very large extent. So it's been, I'll say easily over a decade that we've had BDC. So there must be some lessons that as a country we can learn from running BDCs also compared to the rest of the world, or even though our situations are sometimes peculiar.
Are BDCs or bureau de change, Taiwo, are they indispensable within our financial market structure in Nigeria? That's the question. Are they indispensable? Do we need them?
I wouldn't say they are indispensable, but I would say they are necessary. Of course, for many years, we didn't have BDCs and we survived. So they're not really indispensable, but they are necessary. And it goes down again to the role that they are playing within the foreign exchange market. I think the way I would like to look at BDCs is a question of whether you need SMEs in the market. So the official market made up of mostly the banks, the CBN itself as the key player, and maybe some international organization. That's the large scale aspect of it. And then you have the parallel market, which is mostly should be under this situation, that should be the market for maybe illicit and illegitimate transactions. But in between, there's a wide gap. So that's why you need BDCs. But then they have to be regulated to do it in the way that is not counterproductive and does not, compound the problem they are meant to solve within the system.
Well, when you look at the announcement by the central bank, there will be no sales of FX to the BDCs, but also added there will be no further licensing of new BDCs. What do you make of that statement? What is the central bank hinting at?
Yeah, I think it has to be, in my view, it has to be a temporary measure. To my mind, it's not the solution to the problem. If you ban them permanently, it should be that this ban is to enable the central bank think about more structurally, how do you address this problem? Because if you have a very wide margin between the rate at which you buy FX from the CBN and the rate which you can potentially sell it in any market, including the parallel market, with very little control and safeguards, then the incentive is so high, that people want to try and game the system. So I think at a point they were making more than 100 naira on every dollar that you buy from the CBN and you sell in the parallel market. And I think it's also not difficult to understand why, even though in terms of the volume of transactions for foreign exchange, the volume has gone down over the past couple of years. People are not traveling like before. The inflow of foreign exchange has gone down. There has been a lot of restrictions. Despite that, the number of BDCs registered with government has increased by more than 1,000 folds. So volume is not what is driving it. It is the margin. The margins are very decent, very tempting, and very attractive. So I think that in the process of banning them, we need to look for a way that is sustainable to try and control what they do, regulate them, so that this does not happen again.
On a final note, and we need to spend much time on this, how the currency conversation or FX plays into Nigeria's broad economic framework, including issues such as inflation and all that. You have a minute on that.
Yeah, I'll say, again, because Nigeria is largely import dependent, so that means that wherever the exchange rate moves, it affects a lot of things, including inflation, like you mentioned. But what we need to do is to try and find a way to meet legitimate demand. So the fact that the CBN itself pushes a lot of legitimate demand to the parallel market by saying they are not valid for FX, while you can justify items like toothpick and soap, sometimes it's difficult for something like rice or steel pipes. If rice is not enough, people would import, and that can lead to inflation. I think ultimately we need to find a market-based solution to this problem. So long as we have the incentive, people will continue to game the system. They will do arbitrage, but we need to find a way to solve it, including possibly looking at possibility of forex e-wallets, so that a lot of these is done electronically, so that it's easy to track with data to find out people who are using this for illicit purposes, track them down, prosecute them, so that there will be consequences.
Taiwo Oyedele, fiscal policy partner, the head of Africa tax leader at PwC Nigeria. Have a great evening. Thank you very much for weighing into this conversation. We appreciate your insight.